Okay, the paper we're making the box out of needs to be 6 inches by 4 3/4 inches. Now if you're using centimeters, that'll be about 15 centimeters by roughly 12 centimeters, give or take a little bit. Okay, so for the scoring lines, I'm actually using a Stampin' Up! Simply Scored board. You could also use a Martha Stewart scoreboard or something similar. You could use a paper trimmer with a scoring blade in it, or just simply a stylus and a ruler. It all depends on what you've got available to you. I'm just using this because I like the results of a scoreboard. They make nice, beautiful straight lines, and they're very consistent, but it's totally up to you what you use. With the larger size stylus of the two on the Stampin' Up! Board, I'm going to score at 1 3/8 inches, or 3.5 centimeters if you're using metric, 2 3/4 inches, or 7 centimeters if you're using metric, 4 1/8 inches, or 10 1/2 centimeters if you're using metric, and 5 1/2 inches, or 14 centimeters if you're using metric. There, you can see the score lines there. You're now going to hold the paper so that the skinny side is this way, and the little tab that's created at the end, and you have big spot, big spot, big spot, tab. The little tab is going to be at the top if you're using a scoreboard, and you're going to hold it in a similar way if you are using a trimmer or measuring. So long and skinny this time. Now we're going to make our marks at 1 3/8 again, 2 3/4, 4 1/8, and now we've come to the end of the paper. There's a little tiny space there. And again, if you're using metric, that's 3 1/2 centimeters, 7 centimeters, 10 1/2 centimeters for those. I'll put everything in the description box. Now I'm going to just mark these lines with a marker so that you can see them better, and we'll come back to cut and fold and assemble. I've just drawn some Sharpie marker lines on here so that you can see where all of my score lines are. You'll obviously be able to see your own score lines, so nothing to worry about there. Now we just need to cut out the template. And you have a couple of choices with this. You can either make one out of scrap cardstock and then use it to trace it for the other 24 of them, or you can just measure and score each one like this and then just cut around it. Now we'll start with the bottom section here. You notice that there are 4 big squares and then 1 rectangle here. I am going to cut in from the end into that first intersection, right to the corner, like that. Then I'm going to do the same on the other side, right into that first line or that first intersection. And then I'm going to turn my paper. I'm then going to cut, I'm going to eyeball it, and this is going to create the little flaps for the bottom of the box. I'm going to go just about halfway across, and I'm going to cut through the first one and the second one, and you'll remember we cut a notch in here. You're just going to cut to the end of that piece there. So keep cutting, cutting, and then take the piece right off. There you go. And then you're going to turn it around, and using this rectangle that you've just created as a guide, you sort of eyeball it. And again, same thing, cutting in from the end we've got this separated already. We're just going to cut across. Okay? That's step 1. Now, step 2 is to turn the whole paper around. This is actually the bit that goes inside the box. So this part here, the flap that tucks the top into the box. So we still need this, but we don't need any of this all the way along here, and we actually don't need some of this. So we'll start on the right hand side, and starting at that first line, cut up one rectangle and then the next square, so to there, and then cut in from the side, and there you go. Now we're going to do the same on the other side here, as far as cutting in to the second intersection, so not this first one, the second one, again because this is the tab for the lid of the box. Then we're going to turn it 90 degrees, and doing a similar thing that we did down here, we're actually going to create another tab this way. So cutting through the first square, the second square, and the third square, right up to that square but not into it. Okay? Then we actually only need this to be a tab and this is not necessary. So we're going to cut into the intersection here and into the intersection here. And actually I like to cut it a little bit at an angle like that. It makes it neater when you go to put it together. And then you cut that tab right out, just like that. Okay. And one last piece to cut off. This piece here we want to keep because that's the tab to connect them. We just want to get rid of that little square. Now we just need to neaten this up a bit and we're ready to fold it. So for each one of the flaps, each of these tiny little rectangles here, you're actually going to trim the corner off, just like that. So it creates a tab rather than a rectangle. I'm going to finish that one there, see? And then over here, turn it, and there's going to be a tab there and there. And here and here. Now you're just going to fold along all those score lines. Of course, there are lots of correct adhesives to use. I'm just using Express It adhesive, which is on a tape, double-sided tape on a roll. Totally up to you what you use, of course. You could use glue, you could use any sort of thing. Now, I'm going to put a little bit of tape here, and if you'll notice, I'm placing it right next to the score line on the side there. The reason I'm not putting it on the end is because I want this other edge to stay stuck down when I put it down. So you want to get it as close to that score line as possible. And line it up and stick it down. There we go. You can see the box coming into shape, and we're just going to do the bottom. Now it's the same thing with the bottom. You want the tape or glue to be as close to that score line as possible and not close to the edge. Well, it can be close to the edge, but it really needs to also be close to the score line. And the third tab. And as you've probably figured out just from looking at the box, these 3 pieces are going to fold down. I like to do the 2 outside pieces first, and then this 3rd one here, and the reason for that is that it will then stick to these, which will then give you a nice flat surface to stick this final flap to. And then you just fold that last piece over, and there's a nice, beautiful flat bottom to your box. Of course, you won't have any drawn lines on yours. And I'll just press these down and slide them in, and then of course the lid should slide nice and neatly into the top of your box. Now for decorating purposes, I have decided to use repositionable adhesive to make all of my numbers, because what if I want to make new designs next year, but I don't want to make 24 or 25 new boxes? All you have to do is take them off the front, save the boxes. I wouldn't leave them there all year because sometimes that repositionable stuff can age and then it may end up sticking to it. So take them off at the end of the season if you want to change it up next year. Make a whole bunch of 1 1/4 inch square, or around 3 centimeter square, and then you could do a 1 inch square in the middle. This is using a Fiskars scalloped edge 1 inch square to make the numbers, and then you just pop that on there. I've seen a lot, I did a bit of research on advent calendars, and it seems to be an equal number that are done with 24 and 25 days. It all depends on if you want a treat on Christmas or not. So if you want to have your last treat on Christmas Eve and you want it to be 6 by 4, which is what this looks like, then do 24 boxes. If you want your advent calendar to be a little bit taller when it's stacked up, or if you're going to have it flat like this, then use 25, because it'll make a perfect square. You'll have 5 boxes by 5 boxes. So it's totally up to you. The 24 will make a 6 by 4, and the 25 will do a 5 by 5. So it all depends on what your taste is. And speaking of taste, those Lindt Chocolate Truffles, as you saw at the beginning of this video, fit perfectly in the box. All right, have a great day, guys. I will be back a little later in the week with another holiday inspired video, and we'll talk to you soon. See ya.